Hello students, today we'll see the module on purchasing methods, and to introduce myself, I am N. Rekha from the Department of Food Service Management and Dietetics from Avinashlingam University. To start with, actually purchasing methods, we have different purchasing methods which is very important to know for the institution. Now we will start with purchasing is a process in which it includes buying of materials and equipments needed by various departments of an organization to ensure continuity in production and supply of essential services to the guest. In words of Alford and Betty, purchasing is the procuring of materials, supplies, machines, tools and services required for equipment, maintenance and operation of a manufacturing plant. Purchase department must be highly responsible to the organizational needs in terms of quality, price and delivery. The expenses for housekeeping purchases are planned in advance mainly in the form of a capital budget or an operating budget. The purchase can be of local or imported item. The housekeeping department generates the intents of non-stock items. Stock items are the regular operating supplies such as soap, shampoo, stationeries and cleaning supplies. Purchasing includes the process of buying, learning of the needs, identifying purchase locations, selecting best supplies, negotiating for best price and other relating tasks such as to ensure deliveries in time. Now we will see on the basic objectives of purchasing. To provide an uninterrupted flow of materials and services for institution operations, to find reliable alternative sources of supply, to buy the best value, a combination of right quality at the best price with the best supplier service, to maintain good relations with the vendors, to develop satisfactory sources of supply and maintain good relations with them, to develop good procedures together with the adequate controls and purchasing policy. So now we will just move on to the principles of purchasing. There are basically 5 primary principles of purchasing that need to be upheld by the housekeeping and the purchase department. First is the right quality. The housekeeping department is responsible for providing the guest with a clean, comfortable and safe environment as well as to meet and exceed the guest expectations. In this regard, the department needs to buy the best products. Value for money is the factor in each of the product supplies to the guest room and public areas. The entire range of items has to meet the standards and specifications determined by the department and the hotel management. The second aspect is right quantity. Placing a purchase order of the right quality is of utmost importance for any organization. Suppliers usually offer huge discounts, large quantities, but that should not influence the department's decision. The following factors should be kept in mind while ordering the right quantity of material: the cost of the order being placed, the cost of storage and carrying charges for holding stocks, quantity discount, stock level and order point, buffer stock and budgetary controls. The third aspect will be the right price. One of the major concerns for both the housekeeping and purchasing department is to get the supplies at the right price. An in-depth knowledge of the market is vital to make sure that the right price is being paid. The payment corresponds to the exact value of the material being purchased. While calculating the right price, ex-showrooms, the terms of payment should also be attended. Next is right time. The material should be made available at the right time. Lead time, which is the period between the indent originating from the department, front office or housekeeping department, and the time the material is ready for use, should be minimal. The total lead time, which includes the supplier lead time plus the internal processing, clearance, receipt and inspection time, should be as low as possible to work on lower inventory level. The time should also be right as regard ensuring immediate availability of a particular product in the market. The next will be the right source of supply. The right source of supply is critical to the front office manager or to the executive housekeeper if the source of supply is correct. Right quality, quantity, price and time are a natural consequence. The selection of the ideal supplier is crucial for both the departments like front office or housekeeping and the purchase department in which they are aided by. Say for example, the knowledge, experience, the catalogs, internets available, facilities available, hotel supplies, directories, salespersons, trade association and association companies. Now we will move on to the basic functions of purchasing. Purchasing activities are planned according to the rules and regulations of each establishment. The following are the general functions of purchasing. First one will be recording the specifications for each type of dish on the menu developed with the guidance of people who prepare the meals. Proper storing of materials to prevent any damage or wastage, storing of things according to the utility, rotating use of packed things so that older stocks are used first, developing specifications for food items, liaising with suppliers and user departments, placing orders, receiving of the materials, proper inspection of goods, accepting or rejecting delivery of goods, and maintaining inventories. So these are the aspects which comes in purchasing. Next is purchasing process. So purchasing process gets started only when a need is identified, after which a number of steps need to be followed before the item can be procured. This process requires the interaction and coordination between staff, suppliers, stores, accounts and inventory managers depending on the type of establishment. Now we will see on the various methods of purchasing. The first one will be direct delivery. This is the method of involving direct delivery of food and drink or other goods from the manufacturer, who may be referred to as a national supplier. Next is a open market buying. In this method of purchasing, the buyer invites quotations from supplier for items according to required specifications. The supplier is selected on the basis of his samples, prices, delivery schedule and other services offered. Contact with suppliers is made by visiting to markets, on telephone or by visits of sellers to the food service establishment. Open market buying an informal method and can easily be adapted to individual establishments. It is generally used for purchasing of perishable foods like fruits and vegetables in production area. This also enables the caterer to pick up smaller quantities of items to suit stock holding levels. So important for items used occasionally or less routinely. In fact, very small establishments which are family enterprises often buy directly from wholesale markets, food stores and cooperatives and transport the quantities required to the establishment. This helps to appreciate and be aware of the changes in market situations and make the best use of prices and commodities by using instant discretion in purchase. In larger establishments where suppliers are involved in purchasing, it helps to use price quotation and order sheets for recording the prices quoted in time-bound contract with the supplier. The next one is formal purchasing or competitive bid buying. Formal quotations are invited from sellers against the return specification for each item to be purchased, whether in the front office or in housekeeping. These requests for bids may be made through newspapers or other publications that are widely distributed, or they may be passed to interested sellers who may be contacted over the phone. Along with specifications, the buyers also include in their request conditions like last date for quotations, general time between order and delivery, mode of delivery, terms of payment, willingness purchasing policy of each establishment. The quotations received are kept sealed till the date of opening, which is also indicated in the buyer's request. They are then opened by the purchasing manager in the presence of the bidders and representatives from the user department, accounts and administrative staff who witnesses the quotation accepted. The usual practice is to accept the quotation of the lowest bidder unless the products fail to meet the specifications. This mode of buying are generally adopted by government organizations for which central purchasing is done in bulk, such as for hospitals or homes, for the handicapped or government schools. This is suitable for large catering establishments. Next is negotiated buying. From the name itself, you can understand that it is how you develop the relationship between the buyers. This method involves negotiation between the buyer and the seller regarding the price and quantities. This method is generally used for items that are limited in supply, where both the buyer and the seller are keen that the product be picked up quickly. Negotiated buying therefore involves taking quick decisions in a fluctuating market. In this case, the buyer contacts the seller directly. This method is quicker, more flexible, and less formal than the competitive bid buying. This method is adopted when purchasing food items directly from farmers or manufacturers, but this is generally possible only for very large establishments because the contracts with the manufacturers would have to be for large quantities. One complete manufacturing lot. The advantage is obtained in terms of quality as well as in price, but the storage cost will be more. Two types of contracts may be signed between the buyer and the seller. First one will be a firm at opening price, that is abbreviated as FAOP contract. In this contract, the buyer agrees to take the supplies at a price established in the future when yield is known, rather than at pre-season prices when the contract is made. Such an agreement is therefore firm but not signed till the seasonal yield is known. The second type is a subject to approval of price, that is abbreviated as SAP, where in this case the buyer has the option of rejecting the order if the price fixed in the future is not accepted to him. The next type of purchasing is wholesale buying. In this method of purchasing, the contract is signed with the wholesaler for the purchase of items at a specific price for future, along with the amount required and when. For the future, the agreement specifies the intervals between deliveries for the contract period. This is suitable for larger organizations or central purchase departments. The wholesaler can offer more frequent deliveries than the national supplier or manufacturer, but within a much more restricted area. Usually, caterers tend to use a combination of manufacturer and wholesaler as the supply sources depending on the requirements. Next is a blanket order purchasing. Again, this is more or less similar to a wholesale purchasing, where here a blanket order is an agreement to provide a specific quantity of listed items for a period of time at an agreed price if the price is not settled at the time of placing the order. A method of determining it is included in the contract. The another type of blanket order agreement is to furnish all the needs for a particular items for a specific period. Under this, the quantity is not refixed until the time period has elapsed. The advantage of this method is that a variety of items for which frequent deliveries are required can be ordered with one source, which may be an agent between suppliers and the buyer. The blanket order method is best for items that are required in small quantities but more frequently, and where the usage rate cannot be accurately forecasted. A blanket order is contracted usually for 1 year, although variations may exist between establishments. The description of orders in this method may be handled in any of these three ways. That is, first one is itemization of all possible products covered, broad description of goods such as crockeries, cutleries, detergents, any other front office materials, etc. General orders to cover all items that a supplier can provide. Prices are also fixed according to the method of ordering specified in the contract. A firm price may be quoted against each specific item or market price at time of supply on a maximum ceiling price as written in the contract. If the ceiling price is crossed, when it is treated as a new single purchase transaction and does not come under the purview of the blanket order purchasing contract. So, this method is useful as it eliminates the routine administrative work of ordering and carrying products in stock which are only a phone call away. Lower prices too can be negotiated because suppliers keeps the stock often at earlier prices even though current prices may be higher in the market when the order is placed. The next type is stockless purchasing. In this case, the buyer does not keep the stock of goods ordered. The supplier warehouses them for the buyer instead. The inventory is thus owned by the supplier. Sometimes the consignment may be kept with the buyer, but it belongs to the supplier. In such cases, the term consignment buying is used. For this type of purchasing to operate smoothly, there must be perfect understanding between buyer and seller. The prices charged in this system may be quoted slightly higher since the supplier bearing the warehousing and inventory cost, but the total capital of the buyer, which is usually fixed in stocks, is much less. Here, a backup minimum inventory is maintained by establishment to protect against unforeseen delays in production, delivery, or a sudden increase in requirements. Generally, stockless purchasing applies to off-the-shelf items like essences, processed food, mixies, snacks, biscuits, ready meal items, and so on. Such items are commonly used by other establishments as well as the general consumer, although the buyer may purchase it at frequent intervals. Contract purchasing. This method of purchasing assists the buyers and the sellers to improve the reordering of items that are repeatedly called for with minimal administrative expenses. This method is similar to the blanket order purchasing, except that the agreement is long term and the supplier are therefore not changed frequently. The rate of usage and frequency of ordering over the contract period need to be known under the system contract. This method of purchasing is most commonly used for the purchase of housekeeping supplies. The supplier is a specialist in the supply for the quantities demanded and offers and discounts to the buyer on the total contract. The supplier usually assists the buyer in analyzing requirements of materials covered by the contract so that the contract details will reflect the product variations and prices most suitable to him. The rate of usage and frequency of reordering need to be known over the past contract period. Under the system's contract, the buyer receives only those brands which are produced or sold by the contractor. Such standardization is acceptable to the buyer for maintaining the quality of the end products. Immediate requisition is passed on to the vendor and there is no need for copies. The requisition is numbered serially throughout the contracted period and deliveries arranged when required after pricing. The requisition slip. Most arrangements have a clause to deliver a 24-hour notice as if from a storeroom. Periodic payment is made even though every requisition represents and involves. The system's approach has a number of advantages. We'll see what are the advantages of this approach. That is, deliveries are within a 24-hour work period, time spent with the buyer is reduced, it has lower prices, lesser cost on space and staff, errors during ordering are reduced, wastages due to changes in requirements are eliminated. The seller also gains through establishing a long-lasting relationship instead of just taking orders. The last advantage would be saving on paperwork, extra trips, and therefore transport expenses, leading to profitability and convenience for both the sides. Next will be purchase by paid reserve. In this method, money is paid in advance for commodities to ensure continuity of supply throughout the year. The next will be total supply purchasing. In this type of purchasing, all the required items are supplied by a single supplier. This helps in reducing the paperwork, and negotiations need to be done with only one person and not with too many persons. Next is cost plus purchasing method. In this method of purchasing, a supplier buys all the commodities and provides them to the housekeeping department or the front office. The supplier is given a small commission for this. Next one will be centralized purchasing. This type of purchasing is done mainly by the chain of hotels. They purchase items for all their main properties together. This method helps them to source the items at a cheaper price as the quantity of the order is more, resulting in the economy of volume. Next will be standing order purchasing. In this method, daily supplies are fixed for perishable items such as flowers or perishables or any groceries. Next is cash and carry method. This is the method of purchasing where the items are purchased from supermarkets so that the prices are competitive. There are no minimum order levels, orders of certain items in case of non-availability of delivery services. Purchasing from van sales. This method is rarely used for purchasing in the housekeeping department. In this method, purchasing is done from mobile shops which move from one place to another. Next is weekly or fortnightly purchasing. In this type purchasing, it is done only weekly or fortnightly. This ensures regular availability of the items and makes the supplier's price more competitive. The next one type of purchasing is daily market purchasing or petty cash system. In this method of purchasing, item quantities in the store are checked on a daily basis and only items falling short are purchased. This method operates as a petty cash system. It is effective for purchasing small order from local market in exchange for bill so that a cash payment is made. Next type is cash on delivery buying. The ordering system involves payment on acceptance of delivery. The order may be placed over telephone or through the internet. Next one will be check payment ordering. This is another type of purchasing order and draft system. It is a combination of the order and a blank check for payment. Besides the product specification, the order also contains delivery instructions, bank account number, unit price, quantity, discounts if any, and terms of payment are given. The next type is auction buying. This method is of useful for purchasing furniture and equipment that are not obsolete. Sometimes certain export shipments that were rejected by the originally intended buyer are also auctioned to other buyer. Now that we have seen on various methods of purchasing and the importance and functions of purchasing, now to conclude, I would like to say that purchasing process, as it requires the interaction and coordination between staff of user departments, suppliers, stores, accounts, and inventory managers depending on the size of the establishment. So from what I am saying, you can understand that all the departments need to be coordinated before buying certain things for each department. Purchasing is described as an art since it requires talent and satisfaction in judgment. For example, judging the right combination of color, shape, size, and consistency of the item. Therefore, it is very important and challenging function and has to be carried out efficiently to meet the purchasing requirements of the organization. Purchasing is a major factor for the survival of any institution among the competitive environment prevailing today. So, purchasing method properly, we have to adapt the purchasing method, and therefore it in turn increases the profit of the institution. In turn, it increases the reputation of that particular institution.